Creativity is definitely fostered by time, opportunity, and boredom. Be more organized, be more consistent, all of that sort of thing has been just out of necessity. I realized that I have to develop these things in order to get there. I learned, I think, pretty early to keep hammering at a problem, trying to change your approach until you get it. The more we try to speed up by getting ahead and all that sort of thing, the more that becomes ubiquitous and the more that the cycle just keeps going. That's what the cycle of tech does.
Well, welcome to the Engineered Success Podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs, business leaders, and people like you and me that are just on their journey to really understanding what the definition of success is for them. I'm excited today to be joined with Cameron, and we're going to be diving into his story and kind of what's got him to where he's at today. I'm going to have to hold myself back a little bit here, Cameron, because I am excited to talk through some of the stuff that you're working on today and some of the recent content that you've put out and all that. But let's start way back the very beginning to where you were born and raised. So welcome, Cameron.
Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've actually lived in Michigan, Grand Rapids area for my entire life. So yeah, that's definitely interesting growing up in one place and sort of, expanding there. So
yeah. So as you grew up in West Michigan, Grand Rapids area, did you grow up in a larger family, a smaller family? And then tell me a little bit about the dynamics there.
Yeah, sure. So it was a big family. So I'm the oldest of 8. So have a lot of siblings. Yeah, there's a lot of chaos in my childhood.
Yeah.
There was a moment when I realized how chaotic it was. I was playing the drums. There was a Nerf gun fight going on, so I was getting shot from time to time. I believe there was someone playing some other instrument, and then there was a catapult being launched at the same time. So it was all this chaos going on, and I was like, wow, this is actually really insane, So that was a little bit of my childhood. It was a lot of crazy kids.
Yeah,
so.
Love that. So now oldest of 8 to the very close in age, or spread out. I mean, 8. It's got to be some type of range in there, but
so there's 4 boys, 4 girls, and there's a gap in between. Basically, my parents had 4 kids, stopped having kids for a while, and then decided to continue having more kids at another 4.
Nice. And so tell me a little bit about your parents. Did they stay at home with that size of family? Was it something where they were both working full time? What were some of the dynamics there?
Yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked. So yeah, my mom. So we were actually homeschooled, which is interesting. So, and homeschooling for us, I actually thought it was great in a lot of respects. Socially, it was a little difficult in the sense that, I wanted to spend more time with people. I wanted to get out there and do social events more. So I didn't have as much opportunity to do that as I wanted to have. And a lot of it was lonely in that respect. I think from an entrepreneurial and success preparation perspective, it was fantastic. What I learned from homeschooling, so my mom felt, whether she was or not, in some sense unequipped to teach us past a certain point, right? So she did a lot of schoolwork and stuff with us till I think maybe around 3rd or 4th grade. And then at that point she was like, here's a book, you have a year. If you do, 2 chapters a day, 5 days a week, you'll be through it. And she'd do that for all the subjects. So one of the things I learned really early from that, and I'm really happy about this, is that things don't have to take a whole day, So I would get up around, 7 or whatever. That was originally inspired by just my mom being like, you got to get up, wake up and all that. And then, eventually I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I'd be done with everything by 11 and I'd go head out to the woods.
Love it.
So, and then, coming out of that, my mom was like, hey, you got to teach this kid math, or you got to teach this kid to I think I taught my sister Celine to read, and all that sort of thing, from scratch, which is kind of a cool thing to do when you're a kid. They say you learn best by teaching, and I taught a lot. So from a young age. So
Love it.
yeah.
Thanks for bringing a little bit of light into the background of your childhood and that homeschooling piece, and teaching your sister and teaching others, and how that kind of led towards maybe some of the things in your entrepreneur journey that were helpful, but then also some of the facts of like maybe feeling a little bit lonely, and maybe feeling like a little bit, hey, there was a social piece missing there. Just tying it into my story a little bit. So I was also homeschooled my entire life, right? So we're gonna talk through that a little bit, and some maybe common experiences there and some different things. But definitely had an opportunity when I was at home to see my father, who owned his own business, and see his work ethic, and see things that he was doing in ways that it's like, okay, here's things that maybe from an early age were instilled in me as like, hey, this is just the way things are, right? We talk about work at dinner. We talk about taxes, right? When we're at young ages, we work for the family. I mean, we had a opportunity to work. I had opportunity to work for my dad when I was really young, like just follow him around, right? And he was a builder, right? Yeah. And so you got to see some of those things, and so that was exciting from the homeschooling perspective. You got to you maybe miss out in some scenarios, but you have the opportunity to make it up in others. And you already highlighted a couple of those, but what were some other ways that maybe you thought that homeschooling was a positive thing about your past that you're passionate about?
Well, creativity is definitely fostered by time, opportunity, and boredom, right? So I had time. I had a lot of interests, and I had the opportunity to go and like develop those. That is one thing that my parents were really supportive about. If I wanted to build a model of a dinosaur, they'd get me all the stuff from the store, to build something like that, or whatever I wanted to do. I was always doing projects. I stayed home from like a neighborhood birthday party that everybody was going to, because I think I was like drawing a picture of a fire truck or something like that, right? Like I was just always really interested in doing stuff, and creating projects. I wanted to be an artist from a young age, and I guess homeschooling kind of gave me that opportunity to like just like have the time, and sometimes even just the boredom, to like start like thinking and dreaming and wondering, and then go try a bunch of stuff for 15 hours. So that was really cool. I had a lot of downtime in that respect.
And then as you went through and tried different things, middle school age, were you kind of pitching those to your siblings, or just kind of like putting them on the wall?
I was always trying to get people on board with stuff.
Okay.
I would like, if I went to the beach and was building a sandcastle, I would be like, okay, you build this part and I'll build this part, and they'll build this part, and we'll have this big, so I always kind of had that in me of like this galvanizing effect where I'm like, okay, I have this vision, and now I'm going to like try to get everybody to see the vision and then align with it and be really excited about it. That's always been kind of part of my personality. So yeah. And
it sounds like organized in a way that you knew how to put different pieces together, potentially at a young age, to get a larger, sandcastle in this case, but something bigger accomplished. And that come from maybe some of those conversations as the oldest of a large family, like having to support the parents, I guess, in that way. I'm assuming that you did, right? Had to come alongside as the oldest, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, I think there was an extent to where, so my parents were incredible people, and in so many respects, they did not get handed the most advantageous circumstances in a lot of ways. That's you go down a whole rabbit trail on that, but they certainly made a really good effort to like give us better than what they were given, which is what I'm doing with my son, and all that's like the best you can do. But they definitely spent a lot of time ruled by fear, and that was something that was something that was really sort of hard to like parse out as a kid, and hard to like deal with and react to. And so I did spend some time sort of feeling like I was parenting my parents, if that makes sense. So I don't know, there's just a lot of dynamics that sort of led to that being the case, and that created like some unhealth for sure that was difficult to get out of. I have a very good relationship with them now, but that created some real difficulty. And I also think it did create this like ability to like, oh, I'm stepping into this situation where they're anxious and afraid, and like I'm actually like reassuring them and stuff like that. So I think like a lot of I'm not a necessarily organized person, right? Like I'm not a like type A ducks in a row type of person. I'm more of a like, when I see something and I want to accomplish it, like I will just go and go and go and go, and I will develop like skills along the way. So I'm definitely a vision guy. I'm a galvanizing guy. I'm an engaging guy. Definitely not very organized, and have had difficulty with consistency for sure. So that has been like a lot of that, like learning to be more organized, be more consistent. All of that sort of thing has been just almost out of necessity. Like I want this goal. I realize that I have to develop these things in order to get there. So yeah.
And it sounds like a skill that you learned when you were young, that, hey, there were situations where there was fear of chasing the dream or chasing whatever it was. And you said, well, if that's something that we need to chase or that is important that we move forward with, like, let's go, let's just figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
And like, how are we going to do it? We're not sure, but that's okay. Let's like step into that, even though it's uncomfortable. Right.
Totally.
And is that something that you mentioned out of necessity? So is that something that you believe that like you learned that at a young age because you had to, because no one was teaching you otherwise, or that it's something that you just felt? Or did someone come in and say like, hey, this is how you step into things that are uncomfortable for you. This is how you handle fear at a young age, or didn't that happen yet?
No, I did not get any of that. I don't think I got any dialogue around like fear and all that sort of like, I didn't have any idea what was happening.
Yeah.
I felt afraid. I felt sick to my stomach. I felt anxious. I had terrible anxiety. Just like my parents, I had no idea how to deal with that whatsoever. It was when I was older, and that I really started to like figure out like, the real thing was, I've said before that like my mom made up for any flaw she had by teaching me to read. She taught me to read. She taught me to love books. Her dad had told her like, whatever you do, just read to him. When she had me, her first kid. And so she read to me all the time. So I learned to just like go to books. If I had any sort of problems, I would just like go to books. I would escape to books. When I was depressed and anxious as a really young kid, I would go read a book, and I would enter that character's world, and I would just leave. It was incredible. And so when I got older, I started kind of doing that when I was like, wait a minute, I'm feeling really anxious and stuff like that. And then I discovered there were books about that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So
yeah, and then that just brings to light the importance of what types of books, you're actually running to. And so some of those that you had the opportunity to get involved with were helpful for you, and thankfully led you into a direction that, a path that maybe you didn't design for yourself, but yet that book helped you understand what, that next step needed to be in that path. And so let's say your middle school, you were homeschooled your entire life? Or did you get into?
I think I went to like public kindergarten and maybe part of third grade.
Okay, but through high school and things like that. Yeah. And were you able to get involved in different sports or different competitions types things in high school, or none of that in high school either?
No, we like, there was just a lot of like, there was a lot going on with the family. I mean, there's
catapults
8 kids and so realistically, like, I think I was in basketball for a while, and then I got pulled out. I was in, I did swimming maybe when I was really young for a while, but then I got pulled out of that too. So like, I never really stuck it out, or I never really had the opportunity to stick it out with the sport. I also didn't really care that much, right? Like, I was just not that interested in sports and all that sort of thing. I kind of always had this perspective of like, I'd come into a sport and be like, okay, so we're just like making up rules, and then we're all going to get really like excited about like when we perform well within that rule set. I don't know. It just felt weird to me. So like, it just did, like, I just didn't care that much, Yeah,
no, that's fair. And you mentioned that you were reading books during high school and during that time, but what else were you passionate about?
Oh, like everything. I was excited about everything.
Yeah.
So I was always a very like thematic person. So I would be really excited about a theme, right? So my brother and I played a lot of Legos when we were kids. Every morning we'd wake up and we'd say like, "What are you into today?" And one of us would be like castles or Indiana Jones or the spaceships or the Arctic, and so we would build that all day, right? So I loved themes. I would go to the zoo. Like every time I went to the zoo, I was so excited because they would have like the lions exhibit would kind of look like sub-Saharan Africa, and I was like, oh, it's all like themed out, and so I loved that stuff. I loved design. I loved all of that. I would catch a theme really it'd really take root in my soul, right? Like I watched old Jackie Chan movies and I was like, oh my goodness, like Police Story, and like, oh man, I got so excited about the stunts and all that. So I got into parkour for a while. I hurt myself in so many different ways. It was insane. So yeah, I did all sorts of stuff. I mean, I would always have a different hobby. I would be doing, I'd be doing parkour, and then I'd be making pulleys for a while and just really obsessed with like levers and Archimedes and pulleys. And then I'd be like, trying to build models of dinosaurs, and then I'd be like, okay, now I'm gonna build like I built a trebuchet out of wood, like bunch of 2x4s and nails and rope and all this stuff. So tried to build like this life-size trebuchet. It was like 12 feet tall, and yeah, so I did all sorts of stuff. I was just always doing something.
Nice. And it sounds like very creative and story oriented, where you're trying to, reenact almost something that you read potentially in a book or saw in a video or, someone else said, things like that.
Totally.
What are some of the potential, as you think back, like what are some of the skills you were learning through that? I mean, you mentioned Legos, you mentioned building with 2x4s, you mentioned several different things around, bringing something to life. But what are maybe some of the skills as you think back? You're like, okay, that's maybe something that I was already starting to learn at a young age.
Definitely creative problem solving. So, when you're working on any sort of project, whether it's a trebuchet or Legos or whatever, you're going to come across like a creative problem where you're like, oh, shoot, these pieces don't connect right. Or like, as it turns out, I don't have enough leverage on this thing to get it to fire a watermelon,
Yeah.
And I found that like the process of problem solving just means digging in. Like keep trying something until you realize that, oh, that thing doesn't work anymore, and then just think of another way to do it, or ask questions of someone else or whatever, and then just do that as fast as possible, and then just do the next thing as fast as possible until you've reached something that does work. But I think it's that like what I realized this pretty early, where there's this tendency to procrastinate on taking the next step. And I realized that like, oh, it takes me like, let's say it takes me 5 tries to creative problem solve, right? Well, if I keep trying number 1 too long after I've realized that it doesn't work, or I get stuck on number 3, or I take too long a break and I'm like, oh, well, this isn't going to work or whatever, I'm not going to get to 5. I don't know that it's going to take me 5 tries. It might take me 10 tries. It might take me 3 tries. It might take me, 7 tries. But the more you delay any part of that process, the slower the going, and the less likely you are to finish before your momentum runs out. So I learned, I think, pretty early to like keep hammering at a problem, especially while you have the momentum to do it. Just keep trying to change your approach until you get it.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for breaking that down, as well as telling us a little bit about your approach to problem solving as you were younger. And it kind of steps into what you mentioned earlier about the being able to step into fear a little bit, and being able to jump into something even if you don't know what the outcome's going to be, right? And you know that if you make a decision, it's great, because then you can make another decision. Now you have new information that you can make a better decision the next time.
Totally.
So it's understanding that it's like, I might not know the right answer, but I know what I think is heading me in the right direction. Let's go that way.
Yes.
And you were doing that in high school with different projects that you were working on, different skill sets that you were learning. Now with that, did you tell me a little bit about your work as high school, college, whatever? When did you get into kind of that first, all right, now I've got a paying gig gig, a paying job?
Well, I don't necessarily remember what my first job was. I did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I sort of was interested in. I was interested in having a job at a young age. I liked the idea of working on stuff and making money for it and all that. I wanted to work at the horse farm across the street. There, we lived in the country, and so there was like a horse farm there, and I was like,
So you weren't downtown Grand Rapids?
No, we grew up in a farm area.
Okay.
You know, 4-H was a big thing and all that.
Yeah.
I never did
Homeschoolers
4-H.
and 4-H.
Oh yeah,
those go together.
But no, I wanted to work at the. This is actually hilarious. I wanted to work at the horse farm because I was like, it seems like the work is like lifting heavy stuff and like, you know, I loved animals. I was obsessed with animals. And I actually ran this like newsletter about animals that I sent out. I would just like ask people if they would be on my newsletter. I'd be like, would you like to subscribe to my newsletter? Like in person to people. And I'd get their mailing addresses.
I was going to say, this isn't an email.
No. This was before, that was
or
a
something.
thing. Yeah. So so I would print these things out. It was like 5 pages or whatever. And I would mail them to like 40 people for like 6 years. But I do all these like things about animals. And so I was really into animals. I was not necessarily into horses specifically. I didn't really care about horses specifically other than they were animals and I was excited about them. So I wanted to work at that horse farm. My mom was like, you're going to fall in love with a horse girl.
Yeah.
And I don't like horse girls. So you're, and she, I mean,
horse
who
girls are
knows?
needy. Yeah.
Who knows? She might've been right. Yeah. I don't know. Who knows what she spared me from, but,
so you didn't ever
I did not know. I was not allowed to do that, but that was my first, I think that was my first inkling of like, I really want to do it. I really want to like work on this or get paid for this or whatever. And, so I worked at a couple places. I remember doing some teaching really early. Like there was like a homeschool co-op or whatever, and I started teaching there. I somehow ended up getting in as a pharmacy tech. That's actually kind of a lofty position to get like pretty early. But like one of my friends left and was like, "Oh, I recommend Cameron for some reason." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And they were like, "Oh, well, you don't really have the qualifications, but your friend said you can do it. So here, come on in." So I did that for a while. I just did a few odds and ends, but one of the things that was really a big deal is, I started a lawn care company with my brother. That was pretty early in my, we worked at an orchard for a while together. And then we started a lawn care company with like a push mower, and we figured out that we could go around and knock on doors and get business that way. I don't know how we had that idea, or maybe my mom suggested it.
Put a coupon in your newsletter or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yep.
Get your first customers that way. How old were you when you did the lawn care, approximately?
16, I want to say, probably somewhere in that range. I just remember like that was how I paid for college.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nice. So you did that for several seasons.
Yeah, it's still running. Yeah,
okay.
It's still running. Actually, my parents took it over.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Okay, so you and your brother started doing lawn care, in high school.
Yep.
Homeschooled kind of schedule, right? So you could kind of get your work done when you needed to get your work done.
Yep.
And then, potentially that was in the evenings if you were working during the days. I had a similar schedule in high school, but I actually did work on a horse farm. So
all right, you made it.
Small
okay.
family farm.
You
Yeah, there
didn't
were a
meet
couple
a horse
horses.
girl though, huh?
No, just
okay, all right.
couple horses. They were, it was a small one, maybe 3 or 4 horses. So little family farm. But did the same thing, kind of worked during the day and did school in the evenings kind of thing. So, some benefits there definitely for those that are looking to, have homeschool families, huge opportunities, depending on what your, family's interests are, your kids' interests are, if it is, entrepreneurship, or it is, hands-on experiences with their parents or, with their siblings. It opens the doors for some opportunities because you're not, locked into the school system during those periods of time.
Yeah, totally.
It just kind of depends what path you want to go on, and what's best for your family. So, you kind of just got started with your brother. This helped pay for your schooling and your college. So through that, you're mowing lawns, thinking about what you want to do in college. Like, what's going through your mind? It's like, okay, I love doing lawn mowing. I love doing lawn care. or I hate doing lawn care. I'm not really sure which one was going through your head at that time, but you were thinking about, hey, do I want to go to college? Do I want to just keep doing this? Kind of what was the decisions going through your mind, senior year of high school?
Oh, I love doing lawn care. I had a blast. I mean, I got so excited about it. So I think the real thing was I sort of had this like very faith centric missional identity, if that makes sense. I really like, I don't know. I felt like I was supposed to do something really important with my life, if that makes sense. And I think there was a lot of narrative that doing something really important meant like, because you got to realize like when you grow up in West Michigan, once you get out of West Michigan, you sort of start to understand what a faith bubble you're in, right? You don't really realize that because you just see it everywhere. But it's just like if you went to a Muslim country and you're like, wow, they're like praying 5 times a day, and they're like, they just see this whole lifestyle as like the way life is. That's West Michigan is that. That's just the reality, right? I didn't realize that until I started getting out of West Michigan a little bit. But being inside that like faith bubble, microcosm, which is not a bad thing. There are a lot of wonderful things about it. The narrative was very much that doing something important means being a missionary or being a pastor, or so I sort of spiritualized it and was like or didn't spiritualize it, right? Like didn't spiritualize normal work. And so I really believed that my options to make the biggest impact on a like if you think about it from sort of a like what really matters perspective, I guess, where like I could be a missionary, I could be a pastor, I could, so I decided that I was gonna try to be a pastor. That's what I did at that time. So the lawn mowing, like I never really thought like, oh, I could just do that, right? I never thought about just like scaling and growing that business. And I think if I knew what I knew now and went back then, I would have scaled the lawn care company and then maybe sold it or kept it running on the side as a silent partner or something like that. Like I've considered getting back into it, like talking to my parents and being like, but I just really had that sort of like belief that I needed to do something very spiritually significant.
And that was defined, it seems like, not putting words in your mouth, you can answer this, that was defined by almost a title at that point of pastor or missionary, more than the action of, hey, spiritually significant could be ministering to these people that I'm mowing their lawns to, or having a business where I have employees where, that's my street corner where I'm having conversations.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're getting at when you're saying, the bubble, the West Michigan bubble and significant is more like that title of missionary or pastor more than the action?
I think it was more, I didn't see any model or avenue of impacting people's lives through business. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't connect the dots and go like, oh, like if I have resources and I'm talking to people all the time, I can serve them. I just didn't put that together. I thought that, oh, well, if you're a pastor, then you're serving people all the time or whatever. And you're sort of, I also really, to be honest, had this very like, like a lot of spiritual fear, a lot of guilt, a lot of all of that sort of stuff. And so I was very reactive to this idea of like doing the right thing and not like going to hell and all that sort of thing, which again was sort of a product of, you take this kid who is like grown up with really anxious parents, who I'm anxious because it's just hereditary, a lot of anxiety is hereditary. I'm a very soft person on the inside. Like I come off as like this really intense, harsh, often like very bombastic personality, that people are like, wow, he's so confident and all that, but the reality is like on the inside, I'm like this really soft person, who is just like hoping that everybody likes him and like really scared of making sure that I do the right thing. And just like, sort of just wants there to just be love and peace and everything, like, and so you kind of take that type of personality, right? And then, but very ambitious, right? Like very, very ambitious. I've always been that way. You take that personality, you put it in this little subculture. What do you get? It's just a math equation to me. You get a kid who decides he's going to be a pastor. And I think that was just, it was also something that, like, again, like you've heard me mention my mom impacting my decisions a lot before, in my childhood, right? I think everybody's mom impacts their decisions a lot in their childhood, or their dad does or whatever, but she also sort of suggested it, right? And I think she was also sort of reacting to this Christian, subculture and all that, which is totally fine. But yeah, I decided I was going to go down that rabbit hole for those sorts of reasons. And yeah.
And how was that experience? So you graduated high school, and where'd you go to college?
So I actually went online. So technically I homeschooled my way through college as well. So I did Moody Bible School. I got a Bachelor of Science in Biblical Studies. I did it in like 2.5 years. It was like a 4-year program. Again, very ambitious kid. That was it was really cool going through that. I learned a ton. I got so when I get obsessed with something, I will become like, I'll be determined to be the world's foremost expert on it. Yeah. So I learned so much about like, eschatology. I learned so much about like theology, soteriology. Like I went down that rabbit hole so far and so hard. And so that was really like, I was researching a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was out of a place of stress, just like being very concerned about making sure I was right about things so that I didn't go to hell. So there was a lot of fear in that respect. And that's very, just a very interesting experience. But yeah, I did the degree mostly online, except for my first year of Greek. I took out of a box. So I literally this was correspondence classes. So I got a box mailed to me
with DVDs.
Yep. Yeah. Well, no, it was just textbooks. Okay. So like just textbooks. I was supposed to work through that, and I would mail like actual mail with a stamp, mail the homework back and all that sort of thing. It was a correspondence class is what they called it. It was like pre-online classes. Those were just starting up. Yeah, so I think it was like one of the earlier online school programs or correspondence programs. Greek was still correspondence, not online. And so, so I did that, and it was terrible. I struggled so much. Okay. I had pretty much been the sort of kid who would I could barely try and do school assignments last minute, and I would get really great grades for all of high school and most of college. And then there were 2 classes that really kicked my butt. One was Romans. That was a really hard class. For some reason, the professor, I just don't think liked me. And then 2, Greek. Greek 1 was very, very hard. Greek is extremely different from English. Word order doesn't matter that much. It's all based on case endings. And one of the things that really threw me off was in Latin there are 16 case endings, and in Koine Greek or Greek, theoretically there's I think 8. I think I'm remembering this correctly. There's either 5 or 8 or something like that, but there's less actual case endings and stuff like that. And so when Latin-speaking people started interpreting and teaching Greek, they mapped their case endings onto Greek. And so I didn't understand, how does this one differ from this one? And I couldn't figure it out. So I ended up taking Greek. I just barely passed Greek 1, ended up taking Greek 2 at an in-person class, which was really fun. And they explained, you got a really old book there, and you really went through the ringer, kid. And I was like, okay, this is much better. I did much better in Greek too, but those were the 2 classes that were really tough for me. So
that opportunity to learn a little bit of okay, there is a benefit of having someone, a professor, mentor, or whatever available to you that you can just ask quick questions to, because sometimes it just might not be in the book.
Totally. Oh yeah.
Turns out.
Oh yeah. And the experience of him to be able to be reactive to what we were struggling with and all that. He was an incredible professor. He was fantastic. So
And then through that, did you have the opportunity to, I know you did most of it with correspondence or online. You didn't, you weren't in person that much. Did you still have the opportunity to do a little bit of networking or getting to know anyone else at Moody? Or it was pretty much you were kind of on your own and you just mailed it back and forth or turned in your assignments? And
No, I never went on campus. It was all, I went on campus for like my graduation. I like showed up and they were like, we have a cap and gown for you. And I like went,
Who's this
it was a
guy?
huge school. Well, it was a massive school. So like I was just like a number in this big graduation ceremony and whatever. And so I didn't really even care about that. I was like, oh, this is so stupid. But yeah, I mean, I would say like I started getting involved in churches and stuff like that. That was where I had some actual like social interaction and things like that.
In college?
So, yeah.
And what do you mean, like, get involved?
Well, so I had an internship that I was supposed to do for like, I think it was like 10 weeks or something like that. And I ended up like going to this church and I was there for like 10 years. Or not 10 years. Sorry. I was there for 3 years. It just did various stuff. I was supposed to do 10 weeks. I ended up there for like, yeah, I think just close to 3 years. Started out with that internship and then just kept like getting more and more and more progressively involved to the point where I was like sort of a youth pastor-ish
youth
type of
ministry,
thing.
okay.
Yeah, yep. So I did that and then I actually became a youth pastor and had a church for that I was the youth pastor of for like a year after that. So after I graduated.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So now you did spend a little bit of time in ministry, as a youth pastor, after Moody, after that experience, and you made it through Romans. So, now you're good.
Just barely.
And so now you're at that phase of life where you're, kind of achieved some of the things that you in high school were saying, hey, this is what I wanted to work towards, right? Becoming a pastor, becoming a youth pastor. And you're going through some of the motions of that phase. I'm curious because you're not currently a youth pastor today, correct?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. So I'm curious that, like at what phase or at what path or trajectory did you determine like, hey, I want to get back into business or I want to get back into, corporate America kind of things. Like what changed through that phase of your life?
Oh man. Well, it was actually a very traumatic experience at the time. It's kind of funny in hindsight, but the church that I was, so the first church that I was involved in, I was like, hey, I want to be, they were great. I generally had a fantastic experience. I overexerted myself like crazy and like almost burned out doing that. But to be fair, they were like, hey, you might be burning yourself out. I was like, nope, I can take on more. No problem. I'm good. That one was on me. But that second church where I was a full youth pastor or whatever for a year there, I definitely came in to that experience with this like optimism and this like belief that like I'm going to get out there and change the world, and with this sort of expectation that like everybody's doing stuff in sort of this like, they're just not doing the things that they need to be doing. And like, I'm going to get out there and like really, change lives and do everything differently. And so I came in with sort of that spirit, and just without this like sense of how like complex and nuanced and how long it takes to make changes and do stuff. So I came into this youth group that the church was sort of like brimming for a schism already when I got there. The previous youth pastors had some issues, right? And so the trust for the youth pastor position was at an all-time low when I got there. I didn't know any of that. I was excited. I was a young kid. I was just like ready to do some stuff. And so I kind of walked in and accidentally accelerated the schism that was happening. I had no backbone. I was not a very detail-oriented person or a very organized person. And so I sort of walked into something that was being propped up and worked on by like these volunteer parents who were just trying to keep things running and do a good job and all that. And there were most of them became my friends and my mentors and were really but there were a couple of them who I accidentally offended, who then were just like really hostile to me, right? Yeah, they were just really hostile and And again, I have like this really bad anxiety, right? I'm dealing with really bad anxiety at that time. And so they come in, they're offended, they're upset. Um, I'm confused about what's happening, and so they are just reacting to me, and we kind of went back and forth. There was a lot of like disagreement in the church about like different stuff. There, like I said, this schism was like brewing anyway, and so I sort of just like stepped right in the landmine and accelerated it, and it was extremely stressful. I actually ended up quitting at the end. Like now, I think I would be like, first off, I would have so much more nuance to go into those situations, make friends with people, not change things too fast, just like take my time and understand the culture, the environment, and all that sort of thing. Secondly, like if people, crossed me or whatever, I think I would have a lot more like, I would have a lot more backbone to just be like, hey, thanks for your opinion. I really appreciate that. Like, we're going to do it this way and, but maybe it won't work and we'll come back to it later. Just being nice, but having the backbone to like do things the way I believe in doing them anyway. But I didn't have that at that time. I was a scared young kid who thought he was going to change the world and had a bunch of older adults mad at him instead, so.
No, and I like that just reflection on maybe how you approach things a little bit differently today, and that you've learned that through experiences, like, hey, how to have certain types of conversations in a productive way, and still how to move forward, how to be a little bit more political if we need to go there, but like very a little bit more in that realm, and just understand that things take time. I know I say this all the time, but patience is not one of my strengths, and it never really has
not
been
mine either.
But I've learned a little bit more how to give a little bit of grace and, slow down a little bit in some of those conversations. Still, I feel like things never move fast enough.
Yes,
right?
no, I agree.
But it's like, it's okay in some scenarios to like say, okay, these are the appropriate steps. We're not going to skip some steps, but these are the things that actually need to happen as part of this. So what did you do next? So you ended up getting into that situation, stepping away, and then you were onto...
Well, so I was kind of lost after that. So I'll tell you, like right before I left, I was under so much stress that my back like seized up, and I was like in pain all the time. And so like I would try to lie down and I would just be in so much pain from the contact of my back on the bed or whatever, that like I just I was just constantly in pain. And I like the moment I was like, I think I need to be done, I had taken like melatonin, and I didn't even drink, and I drank like half a bottle of vodka, and it did like nothing. And so I went for a run at like 3 a.m. I ran like 4 miles or something like that, and my back was in so much pain. Like, and then as soon as I quit and I went to a chiropractor. And I like immediately like like loosened up, felt better. And at that point, I like didn't really know what to do. So I'll give you a little bit more context. I was married at that time. Okay. I had gotten married to a 4-H girl who, I met at the church I was at, and things ended up going really south with that. It was a really tough situation. So I actually ended up leaving youth ministry and getting divorced around the same time. And that was actually one of the most important things that ever happened to me, because I had, you remember you were talking about earlier, the labels and stuff like that of like pastor and missionary and stuff like that. I had labels hardcore. I was using labels and spreadsheets, man. I mean, pastor was my label, and all of a sudden I was an ex-pastor, which is a bad label, right? I was a failed youth pastor. I was a divorcee, right? I was not a husband anymore. I was divorced. Those were bad labels. And I think it was in this like, oh, wow, the worst has happened, right? Like I had these things I thought were my identity that made me okay, right? Made me good enough. And they are now gone. And here I am. I'm still here. Like, that was really, really important for me to experience. Man, if you were holding on to something too tightly, having it taken away is one of the most important experiences that you'll ever have. It's incredible.
Yeah, and as you think back to that, that was obviously a turning point in your trajectory and into your future. You know, potentially this path over here now is changed, right? One door closed, but what's opening up for you, right? And you mentioned you had the opportunity to get into having a chiropractor come and help with the pain, right? But you still had some of those other things that you're, you know, professionally, personally working through.
Yeah.
And then how did you at that time work through that? Were you able to seek out mentors, have people pour into your life? Is it something where you were able to, you know, find the book or go back to, you know, scripture or something in your life that helped you through that turning point?
Couple things. Yeah. So first off, I had some really great people in my life. There were you know, a few people from the church that I was at who are successful business people. Dan Corhorn, Eldon Palmer, like some people like them who are West Michigan business people who are just really great. They were very supportive during that time. They were very, very helpful. Dan was really big. And so they were there for me. So I definitely had people.
And just out of curiosity, like how did they, you know, yeah, you had a relationship, right?
Yeah.
But there's certain things that, you know, you see people that are going through some of the turning points in their life. And it's like sometimes you acknowledge it, but you don't take action or you don't like do that thing. But it sounds like they did, right? They jumped in or made some initiative. You know, what were some of the things that they did or the ways that they sought you out that were reasons that you're calling them out right now?
Well, as the whole youth pastor thing was blowing up, winding down, all that sort of thing, they were parents of kids in the youth group, right? So they were involved in stuff, but they also knew a lot of the drama going on, a lot of the things that like I was working through. So they would just kind of call me. We would get coffee, like they would regularly either be involved in something anyway and just like take the extra time to like be there for me in that situation, or like we got together for coffee and you know, I would say they did put a lot of work into just being there for me during that time and continuing to kind of follow up. Like I got coffee with Eldon yesterday. I mean, he still is, you know, reaching out and just, you know, connecting and all that sort of thing. Talked to Dan on the phone a few days ago. Like, so those guys are still, you know, connecting and pouring into people's lives and all that.
And they're intentional, right? And that's one of the things that's just as we think about different relationships that come and go throughout our life. And it's easy just to kind of let things, you know, fall to the side and some relationships to fizzle away. Some of them need to, but others that we probably need to make more effort to bring them up. Like it takes some intentionality. It takes intentional time, especially if they're busy people, right?
Yeah,
if they see that, it's easier for them to just say like, well, we'll let Cameron figure it out, right? Hopefully he's fine, right? But they took that a step further. And like, let's grab coffee. Let's, you know, you got a quick time to jump on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And through their pouring into you, obviously through your efforts and coming back from that, what was the kind of the next steps that you took in your journey?
Well, it was a mess. I quit being a youth pastor and all that, right? I had not gotten divorced yet. And I sort of had this recognition of like, oh my goodness, I have a wife and she's finishing up. I think she was doing like a master's program or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to make money, right? Like maybe she was still in her bachelor's program. Anyway, she was in college and we had an apartment or something. And I was so stressed about paying the bills, right? I was like, I got to figure out a way to make money because now I have no job. And so I started just kind of looking around for work, right? I did a few different things. I think I sold cell phones at Verizon for a while. That was one of the first, actually a great experience doing that. That was super fun. But didn't make enough that it was like, oh, this is going to be a long-term career or anything. What else did I do? I just did a bunch of random stuff, but I ended up landing at a web design company. So I have done web design as a hobby for years, right? I did my first paid project when I was 14 for a bread company, so like, and I built them like an e-commerce site from scratch and all that. So like, I've been doing it as a hobby. Like when I got into the youth group, I made them a website, right? Like, oh, I did smart house programming for a little while too. That was kind of fun. I got to program some really big houses. Like, I got to do the programming for like the Parade of Homes houses and stuff like that. That was really super fun.
And this is pre-Alexa style programming, right?
Yeah. We're wiring everything up with like cat cables and all that in the house, and then we're like building like little IR, stuff and all that. So yeah, but it was fun.
Okay. And some of those taught you a little bit about, the corporate environment. I mean, you spent a little bit of time at Verizon, right? And understanding the structure of some of those scenarios, how they might be similar, but different in some ways to the churches and how things function.
Sure.
There's definitely some sales aspect, some personal aspect of things. And then what got you into, let's jump ahead a little bit. What got you into doing what you're doing today?
So I worked at the web design development company for like, I think shy of 2 years. Okay. I was basically towards the end, like doing everything, right? Like I would like have the initial meeting with the client after they had the sales call or whatever. I did a little bit of like sales training and stuff like that while I was there, but I mostly focused on like doing development. So I would take the website project from start to finish, right? Like I would meet with the client initially, I would come up with a design, I would make sure that they had their assets sourced, I would, design the whole thing, I would review the design with them, I would do changes, I would build the whole site, I would build all the functionality. I was like a one-man operation for this company that, I would, do the final revisions, launch the site, all that stuff. Right. So, so that was, it was a really great experience in terms of like, I was doing everything, but at the same time, I was kind of like, if I'm doing most of this, I feel like I could do this on my own. I really liked that idea. And one of my buddies said, like, Cam, I could really see you owning your own business. And I was like, well, if he can see it, I mean, there might be something there.
And did he own his own business?
No. He was
saw it in you.
He was trying to become a doctor. Yeah,
Okay.
he was in medical school.
Okay.
So yeah, I just saw it in me.
Okay.
No, but so towards the end of that, I had a great time there. I enjoyed working there and like enjoyed the owners and stuff like that. But towards the end, I actually got fired. That was very interesting. I've not been fired before, but I had the short version of the story is I had seen them post like their customer support person's job on Indeed or whatever. It was like public, and I was like, oh boy, like I need to tell them. So I told them, and then somehow they found that out, and they like the wife like called me into her office, and like it was owned by a husband and wife, called me into her office and like chewed me out, like yelled at me at the top of her lungs, and then the husband I guess she texted like come to the office, I just fired Cameron. And the husband's calling like every office phone. She won't let anybody answer the phone. Like she wouldn't let any of the employees answer the phone, even though her husband's calling. So anyway, kind of a dramatic scenario, right? That was like, I don't even know, like, I almost feel like it just like incited somehow magically by I shouldn't have meddled and stuff or whatever. Maybe I should have. I don't know what I should have done there. It doesn't matter. But I actually got breakfast with the husband a few days later, and he was like, so if you could rewind the clock, like he was great. I had a great discussion with him, and I was like, no, I don't think I want to rewind the clock. I'm good. I'm going to stick this out and try to do it myself. So they were actually, interestingly enough, they were my first clients. Yeah. So my one of their clients was like, we really like working with Cameron. We're not doing this project if we can't work with Cameron, which is really cool. Like, thanks for vouching for me. It was Kelly. I appreciate her. Still work with her. So yeah. Anyway, she ended up doing a project for her, and yeah, that was how we started out.
And that gave you a little bit of runway, to kind of had your first project, tried to figure out, hey, this is how I start a business, how I file an LLC, how do I make this all happen, right? You're learning through that. And then,
Yeah. Well, I had some concepts because I worked with so many businesses during that 2 years. I'd worked with the youth group. I'd worked on a lot of stuff, right? Like I had filed taxes for the lawn care company and all that. So I understood LLCs and how to do all that sort of thing. I generally understood sales. Like when we did the lawn care company, actually, you know what? I'll tell you this sort of 3-part piece because I think it's kind of important. So my brother and I used to do the grocery shopping for the family, right?
Okay.
So we would go to 2 stores. We'd go to Aldi and Walmart. And my mom would give us a list and we'd go and do all the shopping and we'd come back home, right? She started us doing that when I was 12. So she would actually like drop us off at the store and we would do it. And then when we could drive, we still continued doing that. And because we had a big family, like there was a lot of groceries to get. We would literally we would get 10 gallons of milk. And we would slide hockey sticks through them to carry them. We'd carry them like a casket or something, with handles. And but we figured out that we could draw a map of the stores and then rearrange the list. It'd take us about 5 or 10 minutes. We could rearrange the list, and figure out where all the different stuff was approximately. And then we would shop off of that map. We'd draw a line around it, shop off of the map, and we could cut our time to like a half or a quarter, which was insane. So kind of learned how to do some of that like planning and estimation type of stuff. And then when we started doing lawn care, we realized that we could do the math on how many doors we knocked on to get a job, right? So basically we found out it was about 22 doors to get a job. Our biggest competition was people with sons. They're like, oh no, my son does it. That was there. Other companies, no.
But
not
ours
our
line
biggest.
straight.
Yes, right. That's what I wondered. So we would go and knock on. We would say, okay, well, to pay for college, we need this many lawns, right? We got this much is for taxes, this much is for equipment, repair and like gas and all that stuff. And so we need to get this many lawns. So if we need to hit 22 houses, it would take us about 1:30 to hit a house on average. So, so we would say, okay, well, we need to go out for 3 days. We need to go prospecting for 3 days, top to bottom. And so we would figure it out that way. Right. And, so I learned a lot of like techniques of sales and just like volume and what's important and all that sort of thing, kind of how to map that out and do the math on success. So I learned that then, right? So a lot of those, even simple lessons I took into starting the company and all that, but I had no idea what to do. I will say one of the hardest things I have ever experienced in my entire life was going from like coming into an established business when I had a job, coming into an established business that had tasks for me to do that day, and going from that, waking up in the morning, having like a blank schedule and nothing and no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. Awful. So hard.
And so that's when you went back to the math that you learned throughout the lawn care and grocery shopping of saying, well, I don't have structure, I don't have a plan, but I know I need to get a sale. What's it going to take?
I just was like, I just have to do the next thing, like that I know I need to do. Like, I know I need to make a logo. So I guess today I'm going to work on making a logo. Like, I know I need to make myself a website. Yep. So I guess I'll work on that. I know I need to all this stuff. Right. So I would just try to do like the next thing. But then I just started talking to people and it grew more organically, I guess, but I would just talk to people about what I was doing. So, but definitely I didn't have a ton of strategy at that time. I just had a lot of brute force. And so I just kind of, yeah.
And how long did it take you to get from that point to hiring your first employee?
That's a great question. I want to say it was 2017 when I started. So, probably, well, okay. it's a nuanced answer. So my brother is my business partner, right?
Okay.
My brother Colin. I convinced him to drop out of engineering school on his first day to join me at this company. So he was my first
after his first class.
employee. No.
Oh, it was
So
before his first class.
here's the fun thing. So I was working at a coffee shop. I would go in and work from a coffee shop because I found that if I stayed home, I got depressed and like I would just get anxious and like sink into, I would stay under the covers and keep sleeping and all that. So I'd get up, get out, and go to the coffee shop and work. So the day he was supposed to go to class, I did not know whether he was going to drive to the school or whether he was going to come work with me. He was struggling to decide, and he told me he was struggling to decide. And I promised him, I was like, I promise that you will be more successful if you join me than if you become an engineer. Which is a big promise to make to your little brother. You kind of get afraid of like whether you're going to be able to pull that off or not. But he did not go to the school. He drove and found me and started working. So, yeah.
It's right in 2017, right when you started. At that
I think it was then. Yeah,
right, that
I might be wrong, but yeah, I was doing it for a little bit before I sort of brought him in.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did a little bit of, so he was an interesting character to grow up with. So I'll tell you a little bit about Colin. Colin was always doing something interesting. He's very intelligent and always just working on something. He got into rockets and bombs for a while. So he like blew a crater in our yard. He like filled the whole house with like white smoke by accident one time. He would shoot rockets up hundreds of feet.
It was just the family science class.
It was just
fine.
a family science class. Yep. He got into climbing. So he climbed electrical towers. We would climb like 100-foot electrical towers and like do chin-ups on them and stuff like that. He'd climb buildings and I was scared of heights, but I went with him, So this is my little brother, right? He got into magic for a while. So he was doing all these magic tricks that I couldn't figure out. The weirdest one was he had me like sign a card and then put it back in the deck and shuffle it up and then take it, and then he pulled it out, ripped it up, threw it in the trash, and then he's like, "Oh, check your back pocket." And I was like, "What?" So I opened my wallet, and the card is completely whole, and I still don't know how he did it. He would like go hack people. He'd take over the Wi-Fi at like coffee shops and show me what people were doing. He put his first like hacker in jail when he was 12. Like somebody sent him a virus and he got upset about it, so he like reverse traced him and everything, and like they literally got a notification that this guy had been captured by the authorities and all that from Google. And yeah, so he's just such a character too, and a really good person. So I convinced him to join me, and that was my first employee. So yeah.
And you guys are navigating this together, trying to figure out, hey, what's the market? How do we expand this? And what were some of your goals at that time? Were you saying, hey, we're good, just the two of us, but I did promise you we're going to be more successful, so we're going to make a lot of money? Or was it you were chasing like certain types of websites, certain types of customers, certain size of business?
We had no money and we were desperate and scared. So I actually at the time like was I think I rented out I briefly moved back in with my parents actually, which was something I said I would never ever do. I moved back in with them for like a month, and then I was like, this isn't going to work. And I moved back out and ended up living in a basement that was like, it was an unfinished leaky basement with spiders, had a mattress on the floor. Might have been, I had to leave there after who knows how long I was there. I don't remember, but had to leave there because the guy found out he was accidentally renting it to me illegally for $100 a month because there weren't like real fire escapes or whatever. And if there was a fire, I just would have died. So I couldn't stand up because the ceiling wasn't high enough. So I literally like got my brother to build me a standing desk, and I would stand with my head between the rafters and program. So we had no money. I literally made friends with the samples people at Meijer, so I would have like more food to eat without having to pay for it. So it was like a crazy time. And we ended up getting Colin intentionally, and we like literally told the owners we were doing this. We got him a job at a coffee shop that nobody ever came to, so we could make $12 an hour all day, and so he could still program most of the day, and work on our projects, but then at least we'd have $12 an hour income, which was awesome. Like that was like great income at the time. So
nice. Hack the system, huh?
Yep.
Now, as you guys are working through that, you're getting your first clients, you're kind of learning the system, and you had the right chip on your shoulder, right motivation, because you had to make it happen, right? Which I love and appreciate that, how you jumped in and you said, hey, we're going to do this no matter what. We have to get creative. Then, over time, things started to grow for you, or, it was harder than you expected. Kind of where you at today, and tell me a little bit about, if you feel like that path that got you to where you're at today took longer or shorter than you expected at that phase when you're working in the coffee shop.
I think I had a fuzzy idea of a plan. I just knew that things could be bigger and all that. And I've heard a lot of like really successful entrepreneurs say that they didn't really know where things were going to go, right? You've got like entrepreneurs who know exactly what they're doing and exactly what they're building and all that sort of thing. But like, yeah. So now it's, we have been pretty successful. We, have a office space. We just upgraded to a bigger office this month. There's 11 total people in the company. They're all like, except one, they're all full time. So we are, doing a couple million in revenue, which is pretty great. Yeah, so congrats. It's, we have worked on some really big stuff. We've done do a lot of digital advertising for like Steelcase. We built the NASA website. We work with Clarion, which is one of the biggest events companies in the world. Just really a lot of really cool companies and stuff like that. We have just an incredible team. We've worked on just projects that I just think are so cool. Yeah. They're so cool. And Colin is very successful now. I believe he has 5 houses, I want to say, which is pretty cool. So, that's something that both of us were really interested in, like investing in some real estate to some extent. So I have like an LTR and an STR and then my house and all that. But, he's definitely more successful than if he had been an engineer.
Hey, so check that box, right? And you guys are still friends and still collaborating together, which, is another big feat to do at the same time, right?
Yeah, totally.
Not only any partner, but then your brother throughout the process too. And congratulations on, some of the success that you've shared and, even talking about your story and what's gotten you to these different types of projects that now you have the opportunity to work on, what your team looks like, and that they're just crushing it as well. And, getting into leadership roles and things can be difficult as well. But pulling from some of that experience that you had sounds like it's helping with growing and motivating the team. So just congratulations on some of the success that you've recently just talked about and uncovered.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it has been hard. I don't think like I'll say this. It has been very hard in the sense that, I did so many, I worked every Christmas for 7 years. I worked 7 days a week, in a lot of cases, 14, sometimes 20 hours a day for I remember sometimes that were really, really hard. We were launching this big site. I was awake with naps while I moved into my house or whatever, for 72 hours. I was just living on, 2020 was a big year. 2020 we grew a lot, but I literally worked 7 days a week. I was between 14 and 22 hours a day. I would drink 2 pots of coffee in the morning and 7 Monsters at night. I'm not joking. I blew out my I blew out my appendix and towards the end of that, and it was just these things were so crazy. I remember I convinced my brother to meet me at 4 a.m. to finish up a project. So we got to get started early. And then he couldn't wake up to his alarm, and I literally backed up and ran through his door. I like literally broke his door down, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'll buy you a new door.
We got things to do.
And
man.
I did. I bought him a new door. But yeah, I mean, it was just like the stuff we were doing was just nuts. But I also I look back and I'm like, yeah, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be. I was so stressed out all the time through all of that. But I look back and I'm kind of like, with what I know now, it did not have to be that crazy or that stressful. It would never be that hard again because I just have the information now. And, but I just didn't have it then. Like what I had was brute force. Like that's all I had. And so I just used it and that's what I did. So
now that you've gone through that, you kind of learned the hard way, right?
Yeah,
you learned some of the stuff the hard way, life of hard knocks and some of those different scenarios.
Yeah.
And now you're like, okay, now I'm at this stage where I have this background, this understanding, these people, on the team, these people in my corner. What are you most excited about looking out into the future, right? Now you've got some of these things behind you, but there's more opportunity to come. What are some of the things that excite you the most?
So we had a new guy come on board to our team. His name's Drew. He's amazing. He's great hire. Like such a core. So many people who, when we hire them, like, there's some people who haven't worked out and all that sort of thing, but like some of these people, you hire them and you're like, I can't actually imagine what this place would be like. Like, what were we even like before this? It's they create the culture so much and they're so valuable. So I'm so thankful for him. But he had a little paper of questions in his interview, and he asked, why do you do? His last question was, why do you do this? Like, why are you interested in doing this and all that? And so I ended up saying something that at the time I was just off the cuff. Like I honestly walked into that interview like with zero prep, tired, like just winging it. But that was such a profound moment for me when he asked me that, because I said, when I first started this, I was so passionate about the work. I love the dialing in the padding and getting the logo just right and creating the theme and like, making the UX work really well and getting the conversion rate up. And like, I just love all that stuff. And then I was still passionate about that, but then I began to really love and be passionate about the clients. I was like, oh man, these people are like, they're growing something that matters. They're doing all this cool stuff. Like, I'm so excited to keep like pushing their mission and their vision forward. Like, I just love them. I became obsessed with the clients, right? And then I'm still passionate, still obsessed about them. But now my team does a lot of that stuff and I'm passionate about the team. I'm so thankful that we can, have people who come in and I try to create a really great culture, try to have, good benefits and good, flexibility and positivity. And I just try to be a place that's fun to work at every day and working on big goals together. And I'm so excited about that. That's what I'm really passionate about now is having a team that is world-class, that just has a blast.
Yeah. I love that and your approach on how you've taken, what you've been passionate about, the websites, passionate about the customer, passionate about the team, and how that's now currently something that you're really excited about, how to grow that team. It's not an easy thing, right? Yeah. It's an easy thing to say of like, hey, we create a good culture, but it's very hard, right? And some of those, like, how do I motivate the team? Leadership is a very difficult thing. So, congrats to you again, and continue to get excited about your journey and your future and things. I know that we haven't talked about this yet, and we're going to get to your definition of success here in a little bit. Yeah. But you talk a lot, or you've posted content recently about AI and, how that has changed kind of the ecosystem within your industry, right?
Here
with
it comes, guys. Here it comes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. So we waited till the end, right?
I love it. I love it.
But it's relevant because it kind of reminds me a little bit of like those 14-hour days, all the Monster that you drank, all the coffee that you drank, and kind of like, okay, are people still going to need to go through that, right? Yeah. Are they still going to, when they start this business, are they still going to need that experience? Some ways. What's some of your thoughts on the changes with AI in your industry, and what are you excited about the most in that particular?
So I'm very excited about it. So I've been talking about AI for a long time. Like I did a talk about AI, I think it was like 2017 or 2018, to the Chamber of Commerce, and like they hated it. They just hated it because there was a bunch of older guys, and one of them on his way out was like, I hope I'm dead before that ever happens. I was like, wow, that was really poorly received.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about it for a long time, like way before it was popular to think about. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, whoa, AI and quantum computing, when those two things converge, we're going to have a whole different world. I am currently very, very excited about AI, and I have some plans. I have some very clear, really clear big plans. I have a really big and very clear and detailed vision for where I'm going in the next 5 years. It is somewhat under wraps, but I'm very excited about it.
Good.
That being said, yes, AI presents a huge challenge. I have a lot of thoughts on AI in general. Right now, what AI is particularly good at is taking a format of output, right? If you give it a format, like I'd like the output in this format, like a table that looks like this or a thing that looks like this or whatever. And then taking an array of scattered data or whatever, and like sort of getting it to conform in the most probabilistically correct way possible, right? Now, when most people are talking about AI, we're talking about like popular level AI, right? Which is like LLMs, like ChatGPT and stuff like that, because ChatGPT came on the scene and basically made AI like accessible to use for the average person, right? AI was a thing way before that. But it just became popular level and available and usable by people at scale. So AI does that, but also I think what's interesting is like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just like a stochastic parrot or whatever, right? It's just a exactly what I just said, where it just like will output a format that's probabilistically the most. Well, that's not necessarily true, because it is doing a really great job of mimicking and following patterns. And one of those patterns is like chains of reasoning, right? That's a thing that AI, researchers and programmers have done a pretty good job of implementing now. If you look at like ChatGPT, you can see the reasoning chain and all that. DeepSeek was one of the early LLMs that introduced that or whatever, or that sort of like showed it. So Grok does that. Like they're all doing that now. And so reasoning can sort of be emulated, right? And people are like, oh, well, AI will never be able to like create a creative masterpiece that's truly original, right? And I kind of go, well, the creative process is a process, right? And a machine, an AI can look at a process and it can copy it, right? And the process of coming up with new processes is a process, right? So it's totally false that it's not going to be able to do all these things. It is going to be able to do all these things, and it will keep progressing. There's nothing we're going to do about that. So there are some good things and some bad things that'll come out of that, right? I like to think that it's going to be a really great thing long term, but I do think it's going to be a little hard for us as a society in the short term, because it's the sort of thing where it's like AI can take anything that that you want in a particular output, and it can sort of grab all this stuff and get it to that output, right? And so much of people's jobs is that, right? Now, for me, because I'm always just trying to get to this end outcome or whatever, right? Like, I'm really excited about that. I'm like, sweet, this thing can like do my spreadsheets faster. Awesome. This thing can like, write some starter copy that I can use faster. Sweet. This thing can write part of this program faster for me. Amazing. I love it, But a lot of jobs have had so much stability because there is that sort of predictable, like, hey, this is going to take 30 hours. Can you slot it in this week? Oh, great. Now you can work, 6-7 hours a day on it, and you'll be able to get it done and still have a little margin time and things like that. Like that sort of like planning out your work time and like, that sort of deep work that you're working on for a long period of time It's just, sort of becoming less common, which I think has a mental health impact on people, because they just don't have that like steady work to work on. And the work is so messy, I don't think there's going to be less work. I don't. I think that's a really poor conception of what work is.
That's interesting. And sorry, but you mentioned a couple of different things about like messy work, less structure, things like that. And it kind of gets back into a little bit of your background and your history. You kind of mentioned, hey, I'm not, don't jump into things as the most organized situation.
Yeah, totally.
And it reminds me a little bit about myself in some scenarios as well. And like, as I think about AI and how I've been able to leverage it, it's like, wait a minute. I historically like bounce around a little bit.
Yep.
I try to plan out, but still I get onto this thing, a little bit of ADHD when it comes to the way I get things done. Right. But like when it comes to leveraging AI, I can get something started, whether I'm, having deep research or something, get something started, and then I'm moving on to the next thing. Once it's done, then I plug it in and I like thrive in that, right?
Totally.
It like works really well for me, but I can see how someone's like going to sit there and wait for this to get done, or like, they're going to need that structure. And I hadn't thought about that aspect of it before, where certain types of people might thrive in that little more chaotic scheduling of work than what you talked about with the 30 hours.
Yep. Well, and I think, so there is a huge societal impact of that, right? I don't think that AI is going to mean like less work or whatever, right? Because the main reason I say that is because people have infinite ideas, right? People just have so many ideas that they want to try and things that they want to do and stuff that they want to build and all that. And so let's say that the average, this is an example I've used, right? So I took our sales guy out to the window of our building, and I said, look out there. How many businesses can you get to in in 15 minutes? He's like, oh, I don't know, like 1,500 maybe. Like there's so many businesses out there. And I said, okay, cool. How many of them can afford to build a software? Like a real full-fledged software is like $100,000 or $200,000, right? It's expensive. There's a big barrier of entry. It takes a long time to like figure it all out and get it. He's like, out of those ones out there, I don't know, like 50, 20, and so I'm like, okay, cool. So once, let's say software can be done for $5,000 or like $3,000. And we can just do it a lot faster, and you just do the project management steps in between to get it done, instead of like having 100 hours that you have to spend working on code. How many businesses are now interested in building a software? And he's like, oh my gosh, like 1,500. Yes, exactly. So that's one thing that happens, right? Is like all of a sudden everybody's got this democratized chance of competing and trying their idea, right? And I think that's a cool thing in a lot of ways, because the barrier of entry becomes lower. But there is also so there is what I call the value cycle of tech, right? This basically what happens is tech comes in and it makes a promise, and that's the sales of tech in Silicon Valley and all that. The sales message is, hey, you can do the same thing other people do, get the same results in less time, right? And you're going to deliver the same value that they deliver. You're going to get compensated the same way that they get compensated. You're going to get respected the same way they get respected. But with my tool, you can do it in less time, right? And so people are inherently attracted to things that take effort, right? People are attracted to fit people. It's really hard to be fit. There's a lot of food around that's really interested that I'm really interested in eating. And there's a lot of like, it's really hard to get to the gym and make the time. It's really hard to push out that last rep. And it's really hard to make time to spend on the treadmill and all that, right? Like fitness is really hard. People are attracted to people with money, right? It's hard to get money. It's hard to get out there and negotiate all the deals and work on it and all that. Mm-hmm. People are attracted to really great soccer players. It's really hard to, kick a ball around a bunch of people who are trying to keep you from kicking the ball around them and then score. All those things are really hard to do, which is why we inherently value them. And so tech comes in, makes this promise. That's the sale, right? They're like, oh, you can do the hard thing and you can get the respect and you can get the value. But it's going to be easy for you because of this tool. And for the early adopters, that's actually true, right? They do come in and they are like, whoa, the first college students to ever figure out that they could just have ChatGPT write their essay. Yeah, they were shredding through essays. But then what ends up happening is our recognition, once it becomes more commonplace, is once that resource becomes more commonplace and everybody has ChatGPT and everybody knows about ChatGPT, the value perception goes down, right? Because the economy doesn't work based on value. This is a huge problem with West Michigan has a huge problem recognizing this. The economy of the world does not work on value. It works on perceived value. And so the perceived value, once we realize that something is easy, goes down, right? So the essay that you're like, oh, I would pay you $100 for that essay. Now I'll pay you $1 for that essay, you know? So that's the problem. Like, that's the problem, is that we are in this continual value cycle, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'll just be the early adopter. It's hard to be an early adopter. It's hard to always be on top of the new technologies and always be creating more value with new technologies first. It's just as hard to do that as it is to just get good at what's already there and work really hard at that within the standard conventions of how things are used. It's just hard, no matter how you slice it. And the more we try to speed up by like getting ahead and all that sort of thing, the more that becomes ubiquitous. And the more that the cycle just keeps going, you know, that's what the cycle of tech does. And so just like, you know, cars replace buggies and all that, you know, yeah, I think AI is going to replace stuff. So that's a huge thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. And what you brought to light too is a lot of the change of perceived value and what people are going to see as important and valuable today, or what they see as important and valuable today in 5-10 years are going to be seen different in different light.
Yes.
You know, different types of skills are going to be more important. And as you like take a snapshot in time today and think about those that are going through their journey of entrepreneurship or their journey of business leaderships, or their you know, maybe even an employee just trying to figure out their way towards success, and under their definition, are there some things that they could leverage AI in their scenario today to help them in a way that I think back to you when you were young, you picked up a book, right?
Yep.
And you read this book and you said, okay, here's some things that I need to know to, you know, take this next step. And, you know, maybe there's a situation where they're not going to be picking up the book, but they're going to be getting into ChatGPT or something like that.
Yeah. I would say a few things. I actually think one of the number one skills to learn is just social skills. And here's the reason for that. That's the one thing that AI cannot replace. Have you noticed that if you, there have been so many reminder apps built and scheduling apps built and like organize your calendar for you, AI apps built and everything. And they haven't fixed the problem of people not knowing what they're supposed to be working on, or, you know, forgetting to work on stuff. None of them have fixed the problem. You have the most advanced calendar app that the world has ever developed on your phone right now, and you still forget stuff and don't get stuff done and miss deadlines and all that stuff, right? Like it's just not a problem that can fully be solved by those sorts of things. But people perform in a lot of cases based on social responsiveness, right? So if you set a meeting with me, we set a meeting today, right? I showed up to that meeting because I knew that there was another person there. I have respect for that person. I'm thinking about the fact that they're going to be there. They're going to be expecting me. I don't want them to be disappointed in me. You know, I'm stressed about being late, all that sort of thing, because of that social accountability. Social accountability drives so many projects. It drives so many ideas, all that sort of thing. If a bot had been waiting for me here, I wouldn't show up. I would have been like, I'm sorry, I got to get these proposals done. I wouldn't be here. And so a lot of project managers use social accountability, right? And developers get frustrated with that, right? They're like, We don't need a meeting for this. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you get in a meeting and not only do you figure some stuff out in the meeting, but also you have that social accountability of like, oh man, Wednesday's coming around. We have the team meeting. Like, I better get my stuff together before then. It really drives a lot of productivity, and people just do not respect or care about bots in the same way. And so I would say, social skills are just as important in the post AI age, because people care about people. People are not out there watching battle bots. People are out there watching the Super Bowl because they care about the story, right? And so being able to tell a good story, being able to network, being able to connect with people, being able to solve problems with people, all of those social skills are just as important, if not more important, because the rest of the work, the value is going down, right? That's still very important. The other thing I will say is definitely just learning to use the tools and figuring out what they can do, what they can't do, what the edge cases are, being good at putting the tools together. Like, what if I use, ChatGPT to generate a prompt for Midjourney and things like that, right? Like being able to mess with the tools to see what's available, that is really, really important. So
No, and thanks for unpacking that. And
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about social accountability before, and even the example of fitness and
Yeah.
tying those together about having a fitness coach. I think about that even in my personal or professional life with hiring a business coach. It's the same
Totally.
thing. Like, because I have to meet with the business coach every week, like I'm going to do the things. Otherwise that business coach is no longer going to be my business coach,
Yes.
right? He's got certain standards, you're out, right?
Totally.
So in those types of holding standards and doing it in a personal way where it is a community, or you're, have that social accountability, is an incredible skill. I'm definitely going to have to figure out how to improve upon mine going forward. So thanks for unpacking that a little bit.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is that I think there's sort of this there's this expectation of there to be a call to action, right? Like, what's the call to action to how do we use AI? How do we leverage AI and all that, right? It's either going to be one of two things. Either standards are going to develop and we're going to start to follow them, right? So for instance, a standard that is developing with AI is you put a chatbot on your site. The chatbot has an AI built in. It's usually built on OpenAI or its API or something like that. And it has a bunch of information about your company so it can answer common questions. Mm-hmm. You keep that database up to date, and then it passes you off to a human if there's trouble. That's an AI standard that's emerging, right? That everyone's starting to kind of copy and emulate. You can do that with your business pretty easily, mm-hmm. and there you go. But so there's things that are emerging as business standards or ways of doing things that you can implement. But most of what AI is going to do is yet to be determined, right? And we have as little ability to conceptualize and visualize that as a 16th century peasant has of imagining updating an SSL certificate on your iPhone, right? We have, there's so many layers of abstraction that exist because of the digital world, and that those layers of abstraction are going to go so much further than we can imagine right now. So I have no way of telling you what's coming. I have no way of predicting it. I have no way of understanding it. It is going to be so abstracted out that there's no way of knowing.
But that excites you, right? And you have the opportunity to step into that as something like, hey, this is something I'm afraid of, just kind of back to some of the themes throughout the conversation. This is something that, I'm afraid of. I'm just going to ignore it or push it aside and pretend like it's not there. This is something that we need to learn, test. It's not always going to work right the first time. We're going to learn what didn't work more than maybe what did work. And that's maybe some encouragement from your story when it comes to tying things together there of get in, play with, test, and understand.
Yeah. Well, I think so there's definitely the doomsday scenarios with AI, right? And I have spent a lot of time panicking and being depressed about those doomsday scenarios and all that. And I actually wrote out what are my options, right? My option is basically either someone's going to achieve AGI, right? Someone will. AGI means, to me, everybody's got a different definition, but to me, AGI means an artificial general intelligence that is more intelligent than any human alive on any subject, that can do a better job at any intellectual task than any human. I don't care about consciousness. I don't care about sentience, because I just don't think those are definable. That's not definable. So I don't care whether it's sentient or not. If it acts like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. I don't care. But we will get AGI. That's just the reality, right? Will people care about that bot and its opinions and all that as much as other people? I don't think so, because I think biologically we're hardwired to care about humans. But I've thought, like, okay, there's a lot of disaster scenarios with AGI, right? Like it decides to take everything over and kills us all. It gets bored with us and just leaves and goes to outer space, and then we're like, oh, we have no tech. See ya. It gets controlled maybe by like a single entity that probably will be evil with all the absolute power that corrupts them or whatever, right? Or it just like, there's all these doomsday scenarios, and I've spent a lot of time agonizing about those things, right? And being really afraid of that. And I realized, like, okay, well, what can I control? So nuclear weapons we thought the world was going to be destroyed, right? But guess what? I can't believe this happened, but we all kind of have come to an agreement on safety standards. We've formed alliances and treaties, and I'm alive. I'm not worried about it at this particular moment, which is pretty cool. So I think the same thing could happen with AGI. It might not. I might die. I can't control that. And so I've mapped out my options. I'm like, okay, either I am going to go try to develop an AI, and I'm going to have to go back into this like building world where I'm like, okay, now I'm doing 20-hour days and like just trying to hustle through this and catch up with Sam and Elon and Google and Zuck and all that, and past them, and it's going to take the rest of my life, and I'm going to be like thrown 100% into that. It's going to pretty much take over all my time. So I could do that. I could. I might not succeed. I probably won't, because I have so many resources, but I could. Or I could go work for one of these companies, right? And say like, okay, my goal is to get in and be one of the top AI researchers at like, I wouldn't go to Facebook, but who knows, OpenAI or something. Yeah. I could do that, I guess, I don't pretend that they're just going to take me. Right. But like, if I really put my mind to that goal, I do believe I could do that. But then, or I could go and be depressed and, become a shell of a person who's just like waiting for the AI apocalypse to destroy me. Or I could go and do interesting and cool things with people around me, using AI. And so I kind of look at those options and I'm like, okay, option one, I'm not guaranteed to win the AI race. A lot of people are trying to do that. Probably won't win it, but maybe I will. And even if I do, I might not have control of the AI, right? It might still kill me. Number two, I could go and work for these companies, but I certainly won't have control once I win, right? Like even if I help them win, I won't have control. I have to pick the right company. How do I know they're not a snake? I don't know. So I might still get killed by the AI, right? I could be depressed and then I spend the rest of my life miserable. That sounds awful. So my option is really, I've laid all this out. I'm like, my option is to make cool things with it and try to impact people's lives in great ways and believe that it's going to be this sort of thing like nuclear weapons where we stave off the danger and we get nuclear power and it's awesome, and there will be some casualties, but it's going to be amazing and it'll be a better future. Like if we can get the nuclear energy future right, oh my gosh, our world's going to be so much greater. And I have a vision for that greater world, and I have a vision for the greater world with AI as well. So that's what I plan on doing. that was it.
No, and I love the background and the way that you broke down how you chose positivity throughout that. You know, you still have multiple different options, but you chose to make a positive impact in something that you can have a little bit more control over, but yet takes you into the space that you want to be at into the future. And that is a testament to some of your story and some of the things that you've learned throughout, you know, just even building catapults and trying trial with error, right? Okay, that didn't work. Totally. That didn't work. Now I know how to break down a problem and really attack the right solution the way that I want. And that leads me to my final question, I guess, for you today is as you've thought about your story, excuse me, as you thought about your story, your background, kind of what's gotten you to where you are today, how has that shaped your definition of success a little bit? And what is your definition of success?
Okay. So my definition of success is living a life that you enjoy living with people who you enjoy being with. And I think that success ultimately means two things. One, having a vision and moving towards it consistently, right? Having a vision you're excited about and moving toward it consistently. And it means pivoting as needed, right? And it's actually the process of doing that is so fun and so engaging. It's not the result of that, right? So I was just as successful by that definition when I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor and having spiders crawl over my head. And I was excited about what I was doing. I felt energy as like when I work on these bigger initiatives in a more comfortable setting. Today, I'm just as successful now, right? So it's always going to change, right? Like I could lose everything tomorrow and have to start over, but I could have just as fun a day, you know? I love it, yeah. So I think there's that. I definitely think that the way we frame things is everything, right? Let's say you get together with somebody and it's a new relationship, you know, and they're like, oh, do you mind taking out the trash for me? You're like, take out the trash. Yes, I can, you know, and, you know, then you're with them for, 5 years or whatever. And they're like, do you mind taking out the trash? And you're like, fine, whatever, you know, like, okay, sure, I got to do this, you know, like it's the same circumstance, but it's two totally different mindsets. And so for me, I think it's all about that mindset of like, this is fun. This is really fun. And this is really engaging. And that is what I think, knowing that you are going to be able to pivot and adjust and ask for help when you need it. Other people are going to be around for you, like having a support system, all that sort of thing. I like the quote of like, a bird on a branch feels secure, not because it has faith in the branch, but because it has faith in its wings. And so I think that's really how I see it when I go into this future of like, I don't know if this branch is going to snap, but I trust in my wings. I trust that I'm going to be there. I'm going to be able to figure out how to fly. And I also know that I feel a lot of vision and energy being there for other people, because I know as the world gets more uncertain, people feel more fear and more anxiety, right? And when I felt fear and anxiety, people were there for me. They were. And I'm very excited to, like, as we walk into a world with uncertainty, fear, anxiety, a lot of this whole AI discussion is like, oh no, what if there are no problems for us to solve anymore? We're going to have a lot of problems. When we have abundance, it creates a lack of purpose. When we have abundance, it creates an uncertainty of which option you should pick. It creates this just sense of like, everything everywhere all at onceness that you can't untangle. And I'm very excited to be there for people in the middle of that. So I'm pretty pumped about it.
I love that choice of mindset and the idea that you have faith in the next steps, even though you don't know what it might bring, but you can uncover it and tackle it. So thank you so much for coming on the Engineered Success podcast. It's been amazing having you here. And I know that there's been a lot of insights that you've dropped that are going to help a lot of people throughout their journey, not just through homeschooling and through maybe mission work, but also through AI and how to tackle that, and having the right thoughts about how they can tackle that problem for themselves. So thank you so much for being on, and it's been great having you here.
Thank you.